We are here with Roger Brown's Jack and the Beanstalk, painted in 1982. It's a very important painting, and we're going to start with the broader context. He was a member of the Chicago Imagist group, and they came to the forefront in the 1960s and 70s for their very interesting, humorous, satirical, and surreal approach to figurative art. Within this group, Roger Brown was very much an individualist. In his works, we often note when we first see them that they look like a comic strip, particularly when we look at how he puts the figure into the painting. When you examine them a bit further, you realize that they are far from it. That sort of comic strip approach actually lends a type of innocence and humor to the works, which are balanced by the fact that there's often something very sinister, very deep and mysterious going on in the painting. So for me, there's a metaphor with the surface of things and what's under the surface. Staying within this broader context, I'd like to note that there are certain American movements that have their roots purely in America. They're not borrowing from European aesthetics or global aesthetics. So if we look back to the 1930s and 40s, there were artists such as during the WPA period that depicted America being built. It depicted the American laborer, the common man, the people that physically built our country. Roger Brown sort of comes out of that. We had a very important artist named Edward Hopper, and he's considered the 20th century leading American realist painter. And he melded this sense of what was going on in America, what we were seeing, and this psychological element of what people were experiencing under the surface. For me, Roger Brown picks up that thread. And when he does, it's completely in his own way. As we see in this work, beyond that sort of comic strip approach, he always has an incredible sense of design. Roger Brown repeats certain things within his paintings. He'll pick a form and keep repeating it. So let's look at the story of Jack and the Beanstalk. And we may need a refresher here. This fable actually has origins in the 16th century, and as it comes forward in time, by the time it reaches Roger Brown, there are many renditions of what happens within it. But classically, Jack is a young country boy, and he trades the family cow for a few magic beans. And so this concept of where are these going to take him, the risk that's involved. And what occurs is they grow this beanstalk, and Jack, which we see here in this painting, right in the center, almost hard to find, is in the middle of climbing this beanstalk, which grows up into the clouds, taking him to the castle of the giant. And once he arrives there, he meets the giant's wife. She feeds him milk and bread, and then the giant comes home that lives in the castle, and he feels that there's someone in the house, but the wife hides him, and he goes to sleep after he counts his gold coins. And while he's sleeping, Jack steals these coins, goes back down the beanstalk, and delivers this to his family. He goes a second time, takes the hen that lays the golden egg, and then on the third trip is attempting to steal the harp, and the harp actually notifies the giant that Jack is trying to steal it, and the giant chases Jack down the beanstalk. In order for Jack to thwart this, he cuts down the beanstalk and the giant dies. So that's the general premise, but what are we seeing actually here in Roger Brown's version? Well, the houses down here are not farmhouses. To me, they are upper middle class homes. He's potentially depicting the middle class or even the upper middle class, so that's the first deviation. We do see people down in the corners, and their hands are emphasized. I like to note that in 1983, Depeche Mode comes out with the song Everything Counts, and the full line is everything counts in large amounts, and it has the reference to the grabbing hands. Now that was after he did this picture, but often with artists that do very significant work, everything ends up tying in culturally. So I do want to comment that in 1982, America and globally, we are in a very dire recession, probably one of the worst since World War II. So perhaps Roger Brown is amidst this recession sort of doing a parody on the fact that even though there is a recession, and he's feeling it, that there are a lot of people that are quite well off but want even more. So we have Jack climbing this beanstalk, and the castle up at the top does not show a giant in it. In fact, there are a bunch of little figures in it, which to me perhaps represent the very wealthy few. Those that are keeping down the rest of everybody, and those that have made it in America. And Jack wants to get there, even though he has enough in life. There's a type of greed. Is it perhaps Roger Brown examining how much is enough? In America, you know, we always want more. So fascinating painting in terms of what he may be expressing, and that's what I like about a Roger Brown is we don't know and never will know exactly what his thoughts were, but he leaves all these little clues that we can make our own assumptions about. Also, what's important in this painting is to realize that Roger Brown decided to make this a very large canvas, and I think it was a very major statement. I'd like to see this work end up in an institution in America. Why? Because it's a real teaching tool.